Are you looking for an inspiring listen? Something to motivate you? You've come to the right place. Welcome to Women of the Northwest, where we have conversations with ordinary women leading extraordinary lives. Motivating, inspiring, compelling. Hello, friends and listeners. Today's guest is Lexi Hallihan. She is sharing her incredible journey from where she began as a teenager to the things that happened along her life and the decisions she made that brought about a string of events that brought her to being a foundational person, particularly in the women's surfing world. She is definitely a motivated person and so fascinating, especially for me because I know nothing about surfing. I know a tiny bit more than I started out with now, but I think you're really going to enjoy this episode, so let's dig in.
And this is when people would call me up and say, I want to do your camp. And I would send them literally the registration form and waiver. And then they would send me back a check with the cash. And then I'd send them in the mail their confirmation.
Welcome, everyone. Today I have Lexi Hallihan here with me. She is an amazing surfer, and among a bunch of other things, I'm sure. So we're going to hear all about that. What got you started?
Oh, first I want to say I'm so happy you invited me to be on your podcast. And it's just any way that I can kind of share our story of our program and what my life and stuff is always really fun invitation. So thanks so much.
Yeah.
So how did I get started?
Because this is all going to be new to me. I have never surfed, never thought about surfing other than a little bit of body surfing in Florida once.
Oh, you did? Oh, fun. Oh,
that's all I know.
Oh, that's cool. I should have asked you about that earlier. Oh, well, it's so interesting. When women think about where you came from and how you got to some place, you realize, I'm 64 now, and you realize that as you were going along that path, that instrumental things were happening, influential things were happening, that were guiding you in different directions. And I felt like kind of a salmon kind of going up and around the river as we're coming up. And now, the last few years, I've looked back and kind of explored that and reflected on what got me to here. And I realized, this is kind of funny. When I was a teenager, I used to watch that TV show called The Love Boat. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And there was a woman, I can't remember her name, that was the actress, that was the recreation director. And I saw that, and I used to love The Love Boat. And I would see this woman in the capacity of a cruise ship being a recreation director. And I said, that's what I want to be. I want to travel around the world. I want to bring recreation to people, fun and play to their lives. And that was where my impetus actually came from. So I went to University of Oregon my first year, and I entered into the recreation department to get a degree in recreational management. After about a year at U of O, and I was putting myself through college and working at night at the hospital down there in Eugene, and I realized the classes were just not at the level I thought they should be at for the amount of money I was paying. I thought, I think I need to change my major.
Yeah.
Because recreation degree was not holding water like I thought it would. So I thought, okay, I don't know what I want to be, but I knew I wanted to go to Hawaii and start going to school there. So I went over to Hawaii when I was, how old was I? 19 years old. I moved myself over to Hawaii, and I started being part of the University of Hawaii campus over there. And then I went into journalism for quite a while. I thought I wanted to be a political journalist.
But that's kind of a stretch from
total stretch. But I thought, well, we'll try that and see where that happens. So I love to write, so I thought maybe that would be good. Anyway, I did that for a couple of years, and that wasn't really a good fit either. And in the meantime, I had moved out to the North Shore of the island of Oahu, where Honolulu's at. I didn't want to live in Honolulu anymore, so I'd moved out to the North Shore, and I'd gotten a job at a vegetarian kitchen there called Arisha's Beach Inn Kitchen. And it was an all-women kitchen. So there was 10 of us that worked there, and we made extraordinary vegetarian food. And some of them were cookie makers, some were bread bakers. I ended up being the manager of this adorable kitchen right at Sunset Beach, Hawaii. And Sunset Beach is a really world-class famous surf spot. So we had this adorable kitchen right there. And basically, we fed the whole North Shore's community. They all came there at one point in the day to either get cookies, a smoothie, a salad, a sandwich, or something. It was just great food. And I started realizing I really like nutrition, and I really loved how nutrition and health all kind of combined. If you eat healthy, you feel healthy, nutrition. And right about that same time, my mom had sent me a pamphlet, and it was the top careers that were in demand in the nation at that time. And one of them was dietetic technician. And so I started exploring that. This is way before the internet, so you would just read
Yeah,
about
right.
it.
I know. In a real book or a magazine.
Yeah, you have to go
Like a
explore the
fish.
library. Yeah. And I started finding out more about what it would be like to be a dietetic technician. And I thought, wow, this is really kind of down my line. So I started looking at where could I go to school. And long story short, I found out I could come back to Portland, and where I had grown up outside of Portland, and I could get it there. But I was in love with this wonderful man named Tom Hallahan. And he was an avid surfer on the North Shore, and we were living together there for some years. And I said, why don't you come back with me? We'll go back, to Oregon. And I'll do this for 2 years as an accelerated program, and then we'll come back to Hawaii. But he didn't want to leave the island. So I'm like, okay, you keep our house, and then I'll go there, and we'll see each other on holidays. We'll make it work, right?
Yeah.
But after about 4 or 5 months, he decided he missed me too much, and he wanted to come and see what Oregon was all about.
Because I was pre-FaceTime and Zoom too.
Yeah, you could. It was letters. I realized that was how we were communicating, were letters back then. Was sending letters back for it. It was expensive to call long distance even.
All right.
From Hawaii, it was expensive. So yeah, we were sending letters back and forth. So he came and explored Oregon. I was going through that program. So I got totally into dietetics and then nutrition. So that fed into Northwest Women's Surf Camps because I cater all of our meals. So all the beautiful lunches that I do for all the camps or retreats or whatever I'm putting on are all this organically Arisha's Beach and Kitchen influenced ideas. So they're all homemade and delicious. And so when women come to do a camp or a weekend or a retreat or something, they're getting totally nourished to have this amazing experience. So looking back in my past, that's where...
That was just one of the,
So recreation director for the Love Boat. Then I realized there's where the nutrition piece came in. Then go forward a little bit more in my life, and I was trying to find the spiritual part of my life, about at my late 20s, early 30s. And I wanted to do yoga. And I found out about this amazing woman named Sarah Joy Marsh that was teaching down in Cannon Beach. And I started studying with her. She's ended up being my teacher for, 30 years, I think. She still teaches in Portland, Amrita Yoga up there. And I started studying under her, and I just really found my niche. I loved yoga. I loved what it did as far as me being kind of a high achieving person, and that it was able to kind of slow myself down and go more inward. Back at that age, I always had too much on my plate. And I don't even know how I was pulling it off back then.
I know.
But I was somehow amazingly in their 30s, you can do that kind of crazy stuff. And we ended up staying in Oregon. So Tom loved Oregon. He started surfing down here in Seaside. And so let's see. So he got me into surfing and then through bodyboarding. So you said you'd body surfed before.
Yeah.
Bodyboarding is a smaller board, like it rides waves similar to a surfboard, but you wear swim fins.
Oh.
So while we were still in Hawaii, he had got me into that. And so when we came back here, he loved Oregon. He had started surfing. I'd gotten into the yoga then. So I started doing some teacher trainings to become a teacher, certified yoga teacher. And so to bring that forward, I've taken 3 or 4 of these teacher trainings that I'm a certified yoga instructor with Yoga Alliance. And so I realized that was also a huge part of what I started creating years later with Northwest Women's Surf Camps. And then I had an opportunity when we moved from Portland after my internship was done, we moved down to Seaside. And my friend, who was a surfer friend of mine who runs Clean Line Surf Company, his name's Josh Kostavich, he asked me to come work for him at his surf shop. He said, I need some women energy on the floor and stuff. And so come be my assistant manager at my shop. And I hadn't really put my feet into the dietetic stuff yet here on the coast because I was new down here.
Yeah.
So I thought, I'll pick up a job there for now and pay my car payment or whatever. So I started working for Josh. I didn't know it was going to be a 16-and-a-half-year experience working at Clean Line Surf Company. But it kept opening up for me. And so I went from assistant manager to store manager. And then I convinced him about 5 or 6 years into it that we should open a store in Cannon Beach.
Oh.
And so he said, go for it. And so we opened up the beautiful Clean Line Cannon Beach location. And we did that for some years. So I was really loving it. I was general managing the 2 stores. I had lots of young, enthusiastic employees. I was learning all that management skill, and which is so important to have that when you start a business, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So many businesses, sadly, lose their businesses because they don't really know how to manage it. So I got great. Also, I had gotten management skills when I was in my dietetic training. So I felt really savvy at management. So I'd been with them for almost 17 years. Well, during that time I was working for them, being a woman general manager was really rare in the surf industry, even today.
Oh,
If you go to surf shops around the nation, it's rare to find a woman general manager, the person that's at the helm that runs the whole show. It's a very male-dominated career, which you wouldn't think even today it would still be, but it is. Like, for example, if you go to a surfer or surfing magazine and you look at who's all the writers and contributors to it, it's rare to find a woman's name in a surfer, surfing type of journal publication. So it's very male-dominated. When I came to surfing here in 85, probably 99.9% of the people in the water were men. And there was just a handful of us women that were starting up surfing here. And Keiko Watts was one. She's moved on, lives in Hawaii now, but she was bodyboarding at the time, and I was bodyboarding. And my dear friend, Joanne Kramer, who lives down in Cannon Beach, an amazing lifeguard for Cannon Beach, firefighting woman. She's amazing. She might be good for you to interview. Anyway, she and then another woman named Lisa Middleton, who was pursuing surfing at the time. The four of us were pretty much the only women in Clatsop County that surfed.
Well, was it the same percentage of people in Hawaii?
No, you saw women. Way more women there. Women bodyboarding, women surfing, women diving. Yeah, a lot more women were out in the ocean there. You know, warm water, it's more conducive for women to do it. But here it wasn't. So kind of the task I took on when I started managing for Josh is I felt like women needed to be represented more in the surf product and surf industry or whatever. So one of my first things I worked on, they only had suits that were a certain thickness, which was way too thin for the cold water we have here. So one of the first pursuits I had was trying to find a wetsuit company that was willing to make hooded cold water wetsuits, because I realized that was the thing that was holding a lot of women from wanting to get into the sport. Women do not like to be cold.
I know.
Yeah. To get in a cold ocean is not very appealing to most people. So I was like, we got to get cold water wetsuits for women. So this amazing woman named Brenda Scott, who was running Hotline at the time, she was the owner of Hotline out of Santa Cruz, California. She made all of her wetsuits there in Santa Cruz. And she's an amazing big wave surfer. She lives in Hawaii now. But anyway, I knew her, business-wise. We had a really good relationship. And I said, come on, we need to make some cold water suits. So we did. And we got our first batch, I think, of 8 or 10 suits. And of course, the four of us, four that were surfing, were the first 4 women to buy the first 4 of whatever it was, 10 suits or whatever that we got.
How did you figure out where to have them made?
She had them being made in Santa Cruz, and that was one of the reasons she was able to custom make and prototype women's wetsuits. The other companies were almost all being done in Asia, and they didn't have any kind of capacity to do something like that.
Right.
So she was really cool, and she was a woman business owner, so she said, let's try it. Well, she's made lots of money since then, and all the other companies now make cold water wetsuits for women. Over the years, they all do. But she was the one who was willing to take a chance and see if it would work. And so was Josh, just to be kind to him, because maybe a male owner would say, we're not going to sell women's wetsuits. And I said, just give it a chance. Let's see. So that was the first kind of breakthrough we made. Then we started having conversations with local shapers. Those are the people who make the surfboards.
Oh, okay.
And I said, why don't you start making boards that are dimensionally for women? Because we're smaller, usually. And, you're making boards for guys that are maybe 180 pounds. I weigh 120. I don't need that big board. I need something more for my size. So a lot of the local surfers started doing this. Lanny Schuler, who still makes boards out on the junction, kind of towards the junction, Have you seen it here in Seaside? The shop on the side is all in purple.
Oh, okay.
Schuler surfboards. That's him. And he still makes wonderful, beautiful designs of boards. But he made some for us, and some of the other local guys did. We thought, okay, this is great. We got boards now. We got wetsuits made for women. And still, I could not get women really interested in surfing. And so I started thinking, what we're missing is the instruction.
Okay. Yeah.
If we brought instruction to it, I bet women would get into it. And so with that idea, I came to Josh one day and said, I'm going to do a weekender and just have an invitational, a free clinic for women and that want to sign up, girls or women. And we did a weekender. And me and a couple of men coaches, because there was no such thing as women coaches other than me trying it. And we did this weekender. Well, the second day of the weekender, I had my only real epiphany. And that epiphany was, you are supposed to be teaching women to surf.
Yeah.
Right? And I came home after that session on Sunday, and I came to my husband and I said, I'm going to change my whole direction. And he said, what are you talking about? I go, I'm going to start teaching women to surf. And he thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
Because you've got this great career, all your benefits. I go, I know, but I can't do it anymore. I'm going to do this. This is what I'm being called to do.
Yep.
And so with that, that's how I started on this whole path. And so that winter, I did kind of the strategizing of a business plan and how I was going to make it work. And I had to figure out a way to do it so I could afford to do it. And so I kind of downsized our own personal expenses. And I knew that I wanted to do events. I didn't want to be a surf school.
Right.
I didn't want to every day of the week be doing surf lessons.
Yeah,
that wasn't my, no.
It doesn't give you time to surf.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to create events. So the first summer I offered 3 day camps. So this was in 2005. Okay. Offered 3 day camps. This is way before the internet, way before, I think we had fax machines. That was like the high tech at the time. So I had to literally put flyers up and try to get the word out. No social media, right? To get the word out that this is starting down on the coast in Seaside, right? These 3 day camps for women and girls. When I say women, I kind of mean all ages. Yeah. But so we started, and those 3, and this is when people would call me up and say, I want to do your camp. And I would send them literally the registration form and waiver. And then they would send me back a check with the cash. And then I'd send them in the mail their confirmation. Yeah. This is how it was being done in 2005. And so I would do that. Those 3 sold out like that. Huh. And I realized really quickly, I have to have more day camps. Yeah. So I ended up teaching 8 that first summer that I launched Northwest Women's Surf Camps.
Well, that's when you knew you were doing something right.
Yeah. It just was like, you're on the path, you had your epiphany, and you're doing it, and there's a demand for it, right? So now it's been 20 years. We had our 20th anniversary last summer, and it was so joyous and so fun. And I actually had an opportunity to kind of step back while my coaches are teaching in these events and see it from a different perspective. And I made sure I took time when I was on the beach last summer in these events to do that, because I didn't know if I was going to do another summer or not. And I was kind of at this point of 20 might be a good point to just try something new after this. So anyway, amazing summer. It was so great to be able to step back. And most of my coaches have been with me for years. We have 7 women that coach. Each one of them could be on your podcast. Every one of them has extraordinary stories. And I'm so lucky because they come back every summer and they say, what events are you offering? I'll tell you what dates I can do. And I'm able to get these great women from around the Northwest that sometimes come 3 or 4 hours away to come to teach events with us.
So do you have one of them that would possibly take over?
Yeah. So that was the cool thing. Kaylee Jones, who's one of my top instructors, she started 3 summers ago with me. She's kind of young. She's like late 20s. But she's an amazing woman. She's a free diver.
Is perfect.
Yeah.
Because at that age, you have all this vision and energy. And
and I'm 64. I still have a lot of energy, but I'm like, she's kind of more the one that should be picking this up, right? Yeah. So we've had a lot of great conversations, and she's going to start this summer. It's called seepeoplesurf.com is her website. And Kaylee's going to be offering a few day camps for women, some lessons that are just for women, and then a couple co-ed kind of situations. And she I've been kind of consulting her, and she went and found a couple of wonderful women coaches down in Newport, Oregon. Oh. And she's going to kind of start a similar kind of beginning of a program down there, which would be perfect because my mission and vision to bring Northwest women's surfing community here, I've realized that. And it's here now. Yeah. I mean, I was out surfing last week, and there was more women surfing in the coves than men. And I'm going, woo, woo. Yeah, you've arrived. When you see that happen. So that was just a real feeling like, okay, I think the needle isn't going to go back. I think, at least in the Seaside, Cannon Beach area, the needle's gone over. It's not going to slowly slip back to all men again in the water and hardly seeing a woman paddle out. It's there. But in Newport, it's a lot like it was here 20 some years ago. It's still very male dominated in the water. It's rare to get a multiple 2 or 3 women in the water at the same time out in catching waves. So I told Kaylee, this is an opportune time for you to take the fertile garden that you have down there and to take a strategy and this plan that I have, and she's been part of it, knows what it's all about, and create that down there.
Well, and she doesn't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
And Newport is central.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Salem, Eugene, all the colleges are kind of inland from there.
Yeah.
And it's just like no one's really done it down there. I go, it's perfect.
And you might be able to pal up with the college for credit classes or something, or, something like that too, just for a PE part of a.
Yeah, she could do, she could find like little surf clubs or something, get that going.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's so the path to go back was kind of like recreation director on Love Boat. Then I found my nutrition piece of it. Then I found my yoga piece, and we do yoga in every event. And then I found my managerial part, and then I had my epiphany, and now I've become a really exceptional coach over the years, and I'm able to share that with other women coaches. So it's really fun at this age to look back and see how my salmon swim it came through, and that when you're in that, and I'm saying this to young women that might be listening, when you're in that, you always say, gosh, am I going to find my purpose, my passion? And don't worry about it, is what I say. Don't worry about that. Yeah. Just follow what intuitively feels right in your heart of where you need to be. And if you do that, it will take you in the direction you need to be going. So don't overthink it, you know what I mean? And I realized looking back when I was going through all of that, they all felt really right. Mm-hmm. So all of those little phases I went through and the learning experiences I had all felt really right to me. People may have looked at me and said, you're crazy, or what are you doing? And I was just like, it feels really good to me. Yeah. So if I just follow what's good to me, hopefully I'll find my purpose someday. And I did, and I have. And it's been a really wonderful ride for 20 years. So,
tell me what you like about surfing.
What I love about surfing is this, like I went out today before we came to this interview. It was really icy and chilly this morning, but it was so perfect. I was like, oh, my husband and I said, we've got to paddle out. We got frozen in like an hour. I was just literally frozen. But it was really fun. I got a half a dozen waves. It was really fun. But I realized, because I was thinking about your podcast and when I was paddling out there, the thing that I love most about surfing is how I get this very deep connection with the oneness of what that is. And I feel very connected to, Gaia, Mother Earth. When I'm out there, I have a stellar sea lion that's 20 yards away from me, popping his head up, I've got the bald eagle flying over my head, snow on the beach, perfect waves. And I had the amazing experience today of being out by myself. My husband was down the beach surfing with his friends. And it's just such a connection. I really have never found it in anything else. Huh. When you get in the ocean and you're connecting with nature on such a close, intimate level, it just is an amazing experience. I told Tom,
getting cold for.
Yeah, it's worth getting cold. I told Tom yesterday, I said, I think I want to be a SEAL if I ever come back. And he goes, why is that? I go, because they have this opportunity of being in this water realm, but yet they're also in the external realm too. So sometimes they come up on the beach and they kind of get the external world, but they always get to go back to this fluid water world, It's kind of cool how they can kind of do both worlds, And then my husband said he wouldn't want to be a SEAL. He says, because I don't want to get chased by a shark. So there's that to think about. But I did want to tell you, too, that we do have this summer coming up, 2 amazing women surf weekenders. I shared with you before the podcast that I'm kind of starting a new chapter in my life. I'm kind of going to allow myself to go into the place of a student and the curious wonder of newness and stuff. And so I'm going to explore watercolor painting, which I've always had a desire to do. I'm going to get back to doing my drumming. I do the djembe drum. So I want to get back to my drumming again. I play ukulele. I want to do more of that. And I want to travel with my husband and just have some time to just go places we have never had time to go do.
Now's the time to do this.
Yeah, that's what you said with your retirement. I'm so excited. I haven't found a person yet that I said, are you disappointed in your retirement? Everybody's like, no, hell no. I'm not disappointed. This is a great thing.
I love it. This is the best time of my life.
Really. I just think that's so great because I think when you're a woman who's in doing your thing and your purpose and passion. And when my husband first said, why don't you think about it? At first I was like, what? Me retire? I'm not retiring. Because it kind of feels like I'm stopping everything.
Yeah, no.
But yeah.
You're just moving a different direction.
Yeah. So that's what I started opening to this winter. So I kind of met him both ways. So I'm doing a little bit of a sabbatical this summer with our program. Usually we offer it from like June, July, and August. In a typical summer, it might have 25 to 50 days of events that we do. Last summer, I went from a usual of about 45, 50 days of events all these years, and then I cut it back to about 25 last summer days that we taught. But this year, I'm going to just offer July. So we're offering 2 amazing women's surf weekenders, July 12th and 13th, and July 26th and 27th. And that's our most popular event, and it's when women immerse themselves for 2 days. And we call it camps because you're literally hanging out other than your lodging you do on your own. But it's 2 full days meeting all of these women we provide a very nurturing, inclusive, it's not competitive, it's not threatening, even though what they're learning is an extreme sport. Surfing is considered a very extreme sport. But the way that we hold the space for them, they feel very nurtured, they feel very safe. And allows them to kind of let down their sense of fear or vulnerability and feel kind of embraced by women coaches. It's a great opportunity to experience a learning like surfing where you get women's perspective. It's taught through a female lens. So it's really empowering stuff. My husband calls it my big medicine. Yeah, like kind of an Indian way of saying it, because he always asks me when I come home from an event, was it big medicine, and I haven't had an event, was it? Yeah, because women just connect and it's multi-generational, Joe. So teenagers, women in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, even early 60s, we teach in our weekenders. And it's really fun because after the 2 days together, it's like the teenagers don't feel like they're teenagers and the 50-year-olds don't. It's like
common.
Yeah, we're common. And it's really cool connection. It's really empowering. And the main reason I do it, I've realized after all these years and why it's big medicine, is that it is really transformative for women that come through that experience. And it gives them voice. And for many of them, it gives them a very strong foundation that they can then explore their life with a whole new feminine perspective. And it's so rare these days that we get those kind of unique kind of opportunities like that. So that's the big medicine part that's taught. I mean, it's really fun to see women catching waves, of course. But the real part I've realized after 20 years of doing it, the thing that brings me and brings my coaches back all the time. Because like I said, some are coming from 4 hours away. There's got to be something more than just seeing a person ride a wave. And it's that the coaches get that same sense of that deep connection as well. So it's really, it's big medicine. So anyway, we're going to launch the website with the events to register on February 18th.
Okay.
And they can go to nwwomensurfcamps.com and they can go there and they'll see the surf weekenders in July. And then I'm picking up custom lessons for July, and those are for families and for private lessons. Those include men, boys, kids, whatever you want as far as a lesson. We're doing those around the weekenders for the month of July. And then I'm going to take August and September off and see what you're experiencing. I'm going to have a little sabbatical for the first time in 50 years almost. Yeah. I've always worked summers, so it'll be fun to see what a little bit of being here and enjoying summer feels like.
Well, I would encourage you listeners to go to that website because it's just a beautiful website. There's all kinds of photos and experiences, people's talking about what they learned or felt or why they did it and what they experienced too.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
I'll put that in the show notes.
Oh, thank you so much. And it's just been a joy meeting you, Joe. And I'm so excited about your writing, and it's got me thinking more about my writing. And I'd like to at some point, do a book about the chapters kind of that got me here, and so it'd be fun.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Oh, thank you so much, Lexi.
You're so welcome.